ZeP145 English version, Iran, the lull before impact. When leaders speak about peace while moving weapons into position, diplomacy is no longer the signal. Preparation is. The most dangerous moment in any confrontation is not the outbreak of violence, but the quiet period just before it, when both sides are still talking and both sides are still moving. What matters is not what is being said to the cameras. What matters is what is happening on the ground. And on the ground, the United States and Iran are not preparing for compromise. They are preparing for impact. Act 1. The signal. Once again, the American president tells the media that talks are underway. Once again, he says he hopes a deal can be reached. Once again, he insists that Iran may still accept American terms, and in the same breath, he warns that conflict remains possible. He speaks of powerful forces already in place. He refuses to rule out military actions. He insists that revealing his intentions would be foolish. This language is familiar. It closely mirrors what was said during the Venezuela episode, when diplomacy functioned as cover for pressure, and pressure was intended to produce collapse. At the same time, the message from Tehran appeared cautiously conciliatory. Iranian officials signal that diplomacy is progressing. They acknowledge discussions. They suggest that frameworks for talks may exist. From a distance, this looks like de-escalation. In reality, it's ambiguity. Ambiguity buys time. And in this confrontation, time is the most valuable strategic asset on both sides. Act 2. The mechanism. To understand where this confrontation is going, rhetoric must be set aside. This is not a contest of intentions. It's a contest of systems. Regime collapse is often framed as a military outcome. In practice, it's a system failure. Modern regime change theory assumes that pressure applied at the top cascades downward, remove leaders, disrupt communications, and the system fracture under its own weight. That assumption only holds when authority is centralized, legitimacy is narrow, and elite cohesion is transactional. Iran does not meet those conditions. Iran's political and security architecture was forged through revolution, refined through war, and hardened under decades of sanctions. Power is not concentrated in a single decision node. It's distributed across overlapping institutions, parallel command chains, and ideological network that do not rely on constant top-down instruction to function. This is why recent decentralization measures matter. They are not reforms aimed at efficiency. They are preemptive adaptations aimed at continuity. By dispersing authority, the system reduces the payoff of decapitation. A strike that removes visible leadership does not automatically remove operational capacity. Instead, it forces the attacker to escalate horizontally, widening the conflict faster than intended. This is the core miscalculation embedded in regime collapse strategies. The United States does not lack firepower, it lacks certainty. To collapse a system like Iran, pressure must be simultaneous, overwhelming, and sustained. Anything less risks hardening the very structures it seeks to break. This is why limited strikes are strategically unattractive. They demonstrate capability without delivering resolution. They invite retaliation without forcing submission. They generate momentum without control. This is also why preparation continues even diplomacy is performed. On the American side, the logic is clear. If force is used, it must be decisive enough to avoid a drawn-out conflict. That requires scale. Scale requires time. On the Iranian side, the logic is equally clear. If collapse cannot be prevented, it must be delayed. Delay creates space. Space creates options. Iran's defensive preparations are therefore not aimed at winning an opening exchange. They are aimed at denying the attacker a clean narrative of success. Act 3. The consequence. The outcome of this confrontation would not be decided by the opening strike. It will be decided by what happens after it. If the Iranian system fractures immediately, the preparation, diplomacy, and external coordination become irrelevant overnight. But if the system survives the initial shock, even partially, the strategic geometry flips. After the first 1 to 2 weeks, the attacker's freedom of action narrows, not expands. Targets becomes harder to justify. Escalation thresholds rise. Political and economic costs accumulate. This is the escalation trap. Early in a conflict, escalation appears easy because options are plentiful. Later, escalation becomes harder because every additional step risks regional expansion, economic disruption, and strategic entanglement. Iran understands this dynamic. Survival past the opening phase transforms a strike into a commitment. It forces the attacker to choose between escalation without clarity or restraint without resolution. This is where external actors becomes relevant not as combatants, but as sustainers. Russia and China do not need to intervene militarily to alter the balance. They only need to ensure that Iran does not become isolated, blind, or economically paralyzed. Early warning, intelligence sharing, logistical coordination, and trade continuity extend endurance. Endurance extends uncertainty. Uncertainty erodes initiative. This is why Iranian engagement with Moscow and Beijing is accelerating now, not later. These relationships matter only if the system remains standing long enough to use them. A short war bypasses them, a long war activates them. This is also why public warnings about limited readiness should not be taken at face value. In confrontations where deception is accepted, the most reliable signal is not what leaders say, but what system prepared to survive. Both sides are behaving as if diplomacy may fail. Both sides are behaving as if conflict is likely. Neither side is behaving as if time is unlimited. The lull we are witnessing is therefore not a pause, it's a convergence window. Once preparation curves intersect, ambiguity loses its utility. And when ambiguity ends, the system moves. What is unfolding is not a failure of diplomacy. It's the use of diplomacy as a shield for preparation. The question is not whether talks are taking place. They are. The question is whether talks are the objective. They are not. The real contest is over survival in the opening phase. Everything else depends on that outcome. If the Iranian system absorbs the first blow, this will not be a short conflict. It will be a test of endurance, alignment, and time. And in that kind of war, the side that planned for collapse rarely controls what comes after. Silence in moments like this is not peace. It's the sound of system bracing. 善战者，知人而不知于人 means he who is prudent and lies in wait for an enemy who is not will be victorious. By Sun Tzu, The Art of War. And this is the Zircon Show. In case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night.